Welcome back, everyone, to BBB Sharing. I'm Evie, Director of Ignite, sparked by BBB. We're here in the Ignite podcast studio with our CEO and President, Barry Moore. And with us today, we have cancer survivor Dr. Susan Hahn. I'm sorry, it's Monday for me.
You're doing great. You're doing great. And I guess I made up the cancer survivor doctor title. That's correct. You'll let me know if it's not.
I'm sure there's a more official title.
Yeah.
That's what Barry calls
That's
you.
Barry, pretty lazy, but Barry Moore is a raving fan of Dr. Hung and Massey Cancer, and met Dr. Hung through Debbie Johnson, one of the board members. And true transparency, we'll get it right on the table. I'm a cancer survivor. Anybody that knows me, I'm on social media since 2018, telling people to get checked. It's easier. They always say cancer sucks. No, what sucks is that we don't get checked. That's what I care. You can't change the life that you're given, but you can change the outcome, I believe, by preventative stuff and testing. So with that, we're going to hear a lot from this doctor we're lucky to have in Richmond. So yeah, we are. So thank you for your time. But go ahead, introduce yourself.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. My name is Dr. Susan Hong. My official title is Director of Cancer Survivorship at VCU Massey Comprehensive Cancer Center. We are now a comprehensive cancer center, one of just a handful of NCI designated comprehensive cancer centers in the country, probably less than 60 in the country.
Wow. That's great news. And how'd you get here?
How did I get here?
Yeah, where's your journey? Whatever part you want to talk about or not.
So I actually, I grew up in Connecticut, but then I did medical school in New York City. Then I did my residency in Chicago at the University of Chicago, and I stayed on as faculty. And that's where I built my first cancer survivorship program. It was a breast cancer survivorship program, which I built and ran for quite a number of years. Then I was recruited to the University of Illinois in Chicago by Dr. Robert Wynn to build.
I've heard that name.
Yeah, to build a more comprehensive cancer survivorship program, which I built within a federally qualified healthcare system. And then when he moved to VCU, I was recruited here to VCU. So I've been here since 2021.
Wow. The firepower we have, Libby's so young, but she's a VCU grad. But our medical staff, everything that's available right here is just, we're so lucky. And we just got to tell everybody because there's resources for everything. So we'll let you go. Evie, do you have a question for the doctor?
So you are a valuable resource. Who is it? Like what are the type of people that should be contacting you or getting in contact with you?
So my program sees cancer survivors of all cancer types. We also see patients who have been identified as having a genetic mutation that predisposes them to cancer. So like the BRCA mutations, we see more than BRCA, but and we call those patients are what we call previvors, people at increased risk for cancer. And we do that specifically to make sure that they're getting the right kind of intensive surveillance that's necessary for their care.
Interesting. So what I tell everybody about you, I've sent 20 people probably at least to see you, whether they call or not. It's none of my business and we'll never know because we're not gonna talk about it. But unfortunately, a couple have passed, and a lot of times there's two things. There's two things that can happen. They tell me they love their oncologist, and they feel like it's cheating. And I say, whether I'm right or wrong, hey, I don't give your insurance as a company, just go for another, really just to survive. You've already been treated by your oncologist, and yes, I still go for my blood tests and all. That's one thing, but the way I introduce you, and my wife laughs all the time. I tell her Dr. Hong is the one that knows the truth, Evie. So if my ingrown toenail, I'm petrified that's because my radiation I had 4 years ago. I'm paranoid that something's happened. Dr. Susan Hong, I put it in my words, in the way I speak, because I'm a Yankee too, from New Jersey. I say, she tells me, which she doesn't. She's a professional. But Barry, you're out of your mind. It's an ingrown toenail. But But Abby, if my right finger is hurting and that's a result of radiation, guess who knows the answer? The doctor sitting right in front of us and right on this camera. So that's, am I fair at summing that up about your knowledge? I know you're probably blushing and you're probably bad at saying it, but that's what I think of you. And that's what the story is about you.
So survivorship is never to replace your cancer doctors. We do not treat your cancer, but we work with all your cancer specialists and your primary care doctor to make sure that every aspect of your healthcare is being addressed. What happens to many cancer patients is they feel like they have 5 million specialists who focus on that specific area, but never put the pieces together. We're there to put all those pieces together so that you feel like a whole person, that a doctor, a care team sees you as a whole person. Which is common sense, but that's not the
But it's
way.
not common sense.
But
Some
that-
lay people don't know that.
Well, but also in medicine, modern medicine is very specialized and people have their areas that they work in and areas that they don't cross. And that makes no sense to the patient, right? So I'll give you an example. There are certain medicines that cause people to develop blood clots. Let's say a person has asthma. If they're all of a sudden short of breath, are they short of breath because their asthma's acting up, or are they having a complication from a cancer treatment? Is the patient supposed to know that? And sometimes patients feel like, well, I talked to this person, they told me that's not an oncology issue and that I should talk to my primary care, and my primary care tells me that's not a primary care issue. Who do I talk to? And I say, you talk to us.
That's a good commercial right there.
Mhm.
Let's cut that up and make that a TV commercial.
Yeah.
But, it's, so you're like the next swag that you're gonna give away, like instead of saying VCU, Massey with a coffee mug,
Mhm.
I think we should get a jigsaw puzzle. And you're the pieces,
Right.
Massey should be the jigsaw puzzle
Mhm.
with Dr. Wynn and Dr. Hung and
Mhm.
everybody else that works with you. Your nurses are very trained in specific areas. And if you miss that one piece, it's not a complete puzzle.
Mhm.
And that's where I think VCU wins because of Dr. Wynn, because of you, and because of everybody else. You got how many employees? Hundreds, thousands? Who
Who
knows?
knows? Yeah.
But I've made enough visits to the hospital to understand there's a lot of people there. You guys are excellent in so many areas, so that would be an interesting, but that's how you are. Your care is like a jigsaw puzzle,
Mhm.
and that's your knowledge. And as we always talk about, how do you clone yourself, replace yourself with a mini me? Well, it's difficult because they gotta know whatever got you to this stage, whether you read books, patience, care, empathy. I don't know, but I think it's
It's-
all the above.
It is all the above. And, the great thing about medicine is everything is constantly changing. People who go into medicine, especially academic medicine, have a thirst for knowledge that never goes away.
Yeah.
It's never a cookie cutter recipe book, that it's constantly changing. And
Right.
so my team and I are always updating ourselves. We are very heavily involved in the actual cancer treatment in terms of interfacing with people so that we know what are the latest drugs and what are the potential long-term complications. It isn't for everybody, but it certainly is an area that I find and my team finds incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah, and the medical companies, the pharmaceutical companies are always changing. Like you said, there's always somebody doing research somewhere to do some trial. So you have to stay on that. And I think maybe for you moving forward, the way to break it down is my expertise is autos,
Mhm.
so car dealerships. And just so you know that, it's like you're explaining, you go to a car dealership and then you take your car, if it's a GM car, you take it to the dealership. Well, they charge too much, it takes too long, yada, yada, yada. But the training they go through
Mhm.
for that each year, and they've got to know going back 10, 15, 20 years because the car is still on the road, but technology is changing. So they go to national brand franchise to change the oil, to get their radiator fixed, to get their tires. But it's not all the same because they're operating on all different type models from all different type years. There's no way they can possibly know it. So, go into a dealership, we have an air conditioning specialist, we have a transmission specialist.
Mhm.
I could never expect, even though they knew the one brand, no matter what I paid them, how much education, they kept learning every day. So that's where you are. You're the transmission specialist or
Mhm.
whatever that is. So I think consumers or patients or clients can relate to that more because everybody gets frustrated about cars, as we know. So if we're about 10 minutes. We'll go
I've
another
got a few
2
more
minutes.
questions. Yeah, I got a
Okay.
few more questions for Dr.
And I might
Um,
reject one of the questions. If I do,
Okay,
I want to do a second segment
okay,
because I'm getting into this too much.
okay.
Go ahead.
Then I'll choose wisely.
You got it.
What's it like having that discussion with your patients, and how do you talk to them and say, okay, these are some lifestyle changes you need to make?
So basically, a lot of it depends on, my job is to meet patients where they are, okay? And make sure that, there are certainly guidelines of what we want to recommend, but it may not be suitable for the patient. Okay, so let me give you an example. When I was practicing in Chicago, a lot of my patients lived in areas that were pretty violent. Telling them to go for walks every day was not a reasonable expectation, right? So, so a lot of it is trying to understand where the patient is, what's reasonable within their lifestyle, and how we can adapt certain things to help them feel empowered and to get the most out of life. So,
Good answer.
Yeah,
Okay, one more.
I do have one more. What do you think of the Richmond area?
so Richmond is great. I love the winters here. I do not miss the Chicago winters at all. It's compared to Chicago, it's a much smaller, livable city, and everybody's incredibly friendly. And there's a lot of diversity in terms of things that we can access. So it has everything that I need and want.
Good answer. So why don't you wrap us up? But just to tease it, what I want to do a second segment for is about food, nutrition.
Okay,
And
that's what I saved that question for.
you knew I was gonna reject you on that.
That's why.
That's gonna be our second segment, but we're teasing it right now. But go ahead, you can wrap it up, Ed.
All right, everyone, thank you for listening to our podcast, BBB Sharing.
Oh, before we go, so we have, the Massey Cancer Center has an amazing event, on Friday, June 7th. It's called a Community Fireside Chat at the Science Museum of Virginia from 6:30 to 7:30 with Dr. Patricia Gantz. She is one of the world-renowned leaders in the cancer survivorship field. She was one of the major editors for Lost in Transition, from cancer patient to cancer survivor. So it's an amazing opportunity for anybody in the community to come and talk to her and ask questions.
Awesome.
Awesome,
We'll be
yeah.
sure to keep
Thank you for
highlighting
sharing
that.
that with us,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and please make sure to pay attention to that date and that event. Be a great place to visit and really listen to what they have to say. Make sure that Dr. Hong, do you have any socials or anything that you want to share with everyone?
Social media,
Social media, no, I don't,
LinkedIn or-
no, I'm
That's
not.
fine. Make sure to
Massey
follow
Cancer.
Massey
Yes,
Cancer, VCU Medical. Thank you for visiting us again. Everyone, make sure you like and subscribe. Our YouTube channel is BBB Central VA, and make sure to follow us on Spotify, BBB Sharing. Thank you.
sharing.